I'd rather talk about Charlotte, but this is Edward. Charlotte and me have similar feelings towards Edward. He inhabits a planet very much like Earth, except their sun comes out of the core of their planet. But our jellyfish is controlling a lot of the core temperature and will take the core of the planet and rise it up. And a lot of the people only live near the around the area, the sun, so they can, survive. Some of the jellyfish things do not live in planets, but our jellyfish is basically like a space panda in the shape of a jellyfish. Edward take care of it constantly. It never does the right thing. Worried about some of its rituals when it comes to eating and breeding and making sure that their planet stays alive, which they'll have to worry about long, 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 long in the future. They don't really, it's kind of like climate change, but climate change is happening right now, so I don't, anyway, it's more convenient to put it out of their mind, let's say that. There's an organization, sort of like a coven, that controls the snacks that jellyfish gets. And people often give the jellyfish snacks because they're grateful that they have like the sun and stuff, even though the jellyfish doesn't even acknowledge their existence most of the time. And when they do, it's only to be admired. Sort of not like a panda. I don't think pandas like the admiration of humans. I think they just prefer to be, and when he grows up, he'll be able to communicate with the jellyfish in a way like very basic communication with the jellyfish. How Edward society works, it comprises of one person, Edward. But Edward doesn't age. Each Edward that receives some sort of life lesson, those clones branch off from learning different lessons or from doing something else. Each clone is kind of connected down the line. They're supposed to be connected in a way that know what each other is doing constantly. Also, I was almost going to forget to mention the alien version of Edward loves humans. So the Earth version of Edward loves like peace awards that many humans get for being the best human. Um, or Nobel Prizes and stuff like that. What's the secret about Edward that he hasn't told anybody? Edward personally hates a version of him number one. He loves so much version of him like the older versions that's like trying to help the earth and has this whole covenant stuff that he hates baby version of himself. I just hate to think that. Like, if you stay in that baby stasis for like long enough, it's just nothing to be a baby and constantly be baby. It's probably tough, but I was a baby once and it was tough. It was tough. It was hard. It was a lot of tears and a lot of growing. And often visits him in his little chrome dome, little basket where he's kept in a stasis because of all the things he's done. Edward is not a good person. It depends like what line of growth Edward came from. So if there's like a positive and negative reaction to everything. So he's just like negative, 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 positive, positive. You kind of think it more negative than positive. Like if you think what the next one is, like it's probably more negative. So that's why other Edwards are like nice to him because they think at any time he could be an Edward who, slices and dices. Just the Edward that's a little off, and just to prove that he's like got this basic, boring personality, nowhere, going nowhere, doing nothing, and learning from the coven, which is not his choice. Yeah, but Edwards don't really get trained in birth. It's like they have all the memories of the previous Edward. Why would you need to do anything else? Now, how did Edward Prime survive when he just popped up on the planet out of nowhere and had no one to take care of him? Um, I would say someone came, took care of him until a certain state, discovered that he's a replicating human, and left. If he's replicating, he's a lot to take care of. Because that's like 50 babies. That's 50 babies. Self-replicating human, that's 50 babies coming out of one experience. You know how much babies learn? This should be a nursery, actually. There's probably a stasis or nursery on the other side of the planet where it's real cold and no sun happens there. He lives very close to the sun on his planet. He's also a part of that like whole thing. So he has a since he's so close to the sun, he's very resistant, though he does have to still wear padding to be close to the jellyfish and give him little jellyfish snacks. But he has to wear like padding for heat and stuff. But most Edwards on the planet have this they have a significant level of heat resistance or radiation resistance just built into their skin and even like it's like into their bodies completely. So that's what they're bored with, that type of ability. And which makes it easier for Sasha and Edward to be in a relationship because Sasha is completely fire and Edward is not that. If you're shipping them, great. I love it. Love it. Just so you know, there is rules in the government that you cannot if you're of two different planetary species, you cannot have kids. I mean, it might be possible to take the genome or the personality or splice or whatever, but it's just not ethical to bring a kid that might have two different genomes and create a new virus for both, or worse, be just a terrible person in general. Uh, you can't really choose and pick what you give birth to, so they could just like, hey, genocide, and no one can really stop them because they're an endangered species among the planetary like system. So you can't do the genocide, but you can't get the repercussions if you do the genocide, which would be a personal genocide, just a little personal one, just a tiny one of you, only you. So that's why nobody can have kids off planet. But um, you could still like draw if they had kids. I mean, they can't, but I mean, I don't even know what that would look like. Probably just fire, like fire, and then like the inside, like the guts and stuff, just on fire. I don't know. It wouldn't sustain because they can't like lift up fire. Like if you're made of completely fire, fire is see through and non not fire can't even give off a shadow. Um, that's probably not possible. So, but they could always go to the black market, take pieces of their DNA, make a robot of their personality. That's very famous. I should probably just make a video about the government, but I just want to say this one thing. It's very famous in my universe that people will get black market robo bodies that imitate somebody else's likeness in order to, you know, be friends with them while the person's not there. So it's black market, undercover. You use it for devious purposes, and that's why it's like off the books. But if you wanted a kid that was a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, that doesn't really take as much like DNA splicing as is not as unethical as making a clone consisting of two different species. then the robot's right there. It's not legal. It's also wrong, but it's right there. So you could do that. And really, it doesn't have to be. It could be like if you wanted your dog to talk, or, if, it could be the whole like different people getting together wanting a kid, or it could be just like one person who saw like a actress online and said, what if they were my girlfriend? And then they make this thing, and even the robot's like, you're a loser. Why would I even be here? They destroy it over and over again. It's very unethical. It's sad and unethical and not good. And very sad. And it's not that he's sad. It's just I have a sustain for him because my favorite character has a sustain for him, even though I made him. I mean, you can hate what you make. Venturing on, the elders are older versions of Edward. Edward stands at a very whopping age of uh 28? No, 25. 25 to 38, like that age range. Not really sure because once I set his age, he's that permanently throughout the whole series until he perishes because they don't have an aging process and nobody really perishes unless they get murdered. Enough damage sustained to the body, and that kind of makes it. They do heal from a lot of stuff, but not like super evaporating ashes stuff. Edward, the other, is in pain or sad or happy, but over time, there is some of the Edwards that have like a dulling effect of that. Um, the dulling effect of that process, the farther that they get from the sun. And then some of them don't have that and just ignore those processes. And really, from learning new experiences, their feeling gets duller and duller the more generational they get. Um, but the generation keeps backing over itself because there are some Edwards that, like people, they know the life lesson, but they don't quite apply it. So that makes a halting part in their development. Cloning process is not painful, surprisingly. It's not like a birthing process either. It's just like smoke and then poof, there's like two. And to really get into how that works, I don't want to do that. It's That's how it works, and because I made up the story, I get to say that that's how it works. I think that that poofing process doesn't need to be talked about anymore, so I'm just going to avoid that whole topic because I know how it works. It works like how I said it works. Anyway, venturing on, Edward is very much interested in Sasha, is friends with FC, and well, he doesn't hate her. Charlotte is an inconvenience, is the harshest word you're ever going to hear Edward say. An inconvenience. He allows to make the regulations on how he is supposed to act towards her. So she's expecting him to act friendly, and he acts that way in kind. Edward is surprisingly good at reading people. He can read a situation like it's the back of his hand, and he can really scope out like the true feelings or his interpretation of what you're thinking. He's constantly doing that calculation in his head to know what you're thinking and then to act accordingly. Why is Edward so interested in Sasha? Sasha has a straight path thinking, almost like everybody else. It's the passion that she has towards that straight laced thinking. Because she's the exact same. She's not odd or anything. It's just how she does thought patterns is it's not different, it's just has more passion. And that's why Edward likes Sasha so much. Really wants to let or have it work out with um, joining their friend group because Edward is the newest member of their friend group and he is just grateful to be there. He's very calculating, but he's grateful to be there at the same time. Also, Edward has about, I don't know how many in like an alien years, but I feel like he has a set amount of time before he has to check out, which is give the place that he set forward to his clone so he can go on and take care of everything that's going on in his life. Because uh, if he tries to change or become a better person, especially for Charlotte, that would be giving up his own existence and basically letting this clone of himself take over, which is fine. He's okay with it. I think it's happened many times. So it would bother him to not be there in a sense, though they are connected. So he would have the same experiences all down the line. They're connected, but to have that either dull or not have that experience is scary, is fearful. That's this type of thing Edward has to go through. Their planet does not get a lot of visitors. If they get visitors, it's tourists that looking at the whole Edward line. Edwards, due to their connective natures, try not to go off planet without a lot of regulations, a protective system from the galactic government, and a just like a whole bunch of padding, so they don't get hurt at any time. Because if they get hurt, it could sit right back to everybody else. And then a clone might even happen while they're outside of the planet that could completely die. Oh, death is something that's felt often to the Edwards. They're very comfortable with it. They're surprisingly morbid and comfortable with the concept. Um, Due to that being a thing, a lot of people don't like to talk or associate with Edwards. They're just a little too intrusive, except the Ed that we have. Edward that we have picks up on social cues so much that they know, oh, even though I find this interesting, fascinating, great, they will, withdraw and analyze and then say exactly what you think they'll say. So that's our Edward. That's what they do. The human version of Edward. The human version of Edward is almost the exact same way because basically like Edward, except he's raised by his grandparent. Only one, only one grandparent, the grandpa, and several of his brothers. His grandpa and several of his brothers. I wonder if the jellyfish should be a person. And the grandpa is a part of camping, going outdoors, roughing it. He loves that sort of thing, and that's almost like a cult-like behavior that he has around camping. They often go fishing, camping. They go out to sea sometimes. It's like a lot of activities that Edwards does not want to do at all, but, appreciates the quality time that they spend. So even though he doesn't like the activity itself, he appreciates the talks and everything that they have together. Edward also, the human part doesn't have the whole like feeling everyone's feelings and everything. A good support system that he goes to therapy and, has people who actively will call themselves his support system that's around him. I'm thinking he should have like 3 older brothers that's like so older that they help raise him. because he was just like the youngest. Like, so his dynamic with Charlotte is not antagonistic, but he doesn't really feel like, Charlotte's trying to kick him out of the group as much as he's always been there. So he's like a part of the group already. But Charlotte doesn't like the new development between like friendship and then like you have to change that whole friendship dynamic to turn into something that quote unquote more and she doesn't understand the concept of more, but I'm talking about Charlotte too much. This is about Edward, and Edward is okay with that. Like he's chilling. The only thing he's worried about is like if the whole he feels like FC puts him in check whenever he feels like he's like halfway manipulating people, which he worries about that sometimes, which could come from a level of anxiety mixed with narcissism. He's got anxiety and narcissism. He's got the narcissism that thinks like he's like the center of the earth. And then he has the anxiety to say, I shouldn't feel that way. But no, the narcissism either takes over and the anxiety either takes over where he's stressing about it, what he knows is to be true, but he doesn't really. So it's like, a questioning of like, who am I? Which everybody makes that question. Who are Edward's enemies? Edward, I personally, this is like long down in the line, but Edward should definitely confront Parasite. I do not have a name for her, but I don't know if I'll find the perfect name. She's just a parasite. I think that's a good name. But if her human counterpart makes it on Earth, I think she should have a different name. Edward does not have any really good skills other than he has a pretty good memory, I think. I, and then the social skills are pretty cool. Uh, so let me talk about his appearance right here. So Edward shaved his head. When did he shave his head? Nobody really knows. He woke up one morning, his head was shaved, he wore a hat. He went to school, his head was shaved, he wore a hoodie. It slowly grew back, but then he was like, his grandpa was like, did you get a haircut? How did you get a haircut? And then he was like, oh, I shaved my head a few moments back. He was like, you shaved your whole head? And he was like, yeah, I didn't feel like I felt like I needed air. This is a grandpa that believes in therapy. Obviously, something's wrong. Obviously, you don't feel comfortable talking to me about it because you would tell me, like, if you shaved your head. So, I would say, let's go to therapy. If you don't mind me being there, he would go through that emotions. And he would also say, because you kind of got to remind him to be included. It's a real tough thing for him to include himself. It's like easier to put it on someone else for the like grandpa, but like it's okay. They go to therapy and he's like, well, did you want to shave your head? And he was like, yeah, I mean air, right? He shaved his head and then his grandpa was like, well, if you want to have a different hairstyle so you could get some air on your crown dome, you can do that. You can like shave the sides of your hair, just not the front. The front should there should be like a look like maybe if you parted it to the side, they wouldn't see it. Like a like you could go back to normal anytime, but let's just shave the sides and the back, and then so that's what they did. That's what happened. And that's what. Anyway, I will leave it at that. Maybe I'll do the next one next time or whatever. I don't know. And I don't care. Bye bye.